Hello and welcome to the Vaults of Terra. My name is Ed and today we're going to continue with our Space Marines chapters videos by having a look at the Crimson Fists. Now the Crimson Fists are one of the older chapters in the real world as they've been around since the very start of the hobby. However, they lack a lot of the detailed lore that some of the other chapters have, mainly because they are a codex chapter and do not have as many special rules or special characters. However, there is some lore I can go through, so we'll have a look at it now. Now the Crimson Fists, as I've mentioned previously, were a second founding Space Marine chapter, and they were founded after the Horus Heresy from the Imperial Fists, when Robert Gulliman's Codex Astartes said that the Astartes should be split into chapters of 1,000 strong. Now their colours are dark blue and crimson. Their current chapter master is Pedro Cantor, and their current homeworld is Rinnsworld, with their fortress monastery being actually a battle barge called the Arx Tyrannus. At this time in the Warhammer 40,000 universe, the Crimson Fists are actually below half strength, recovering from the grievous blow dealt to them by the Orcs when the Orcs attacked Rinnsworld itself. Now their battle cry, as I must always do their battle cries, in two parts. The chaplain will say, "There is only the Emperor," and the reply is, "He is our shield and protector." Now their history is quite straightforward. They have been around for nearly 10,000 years, however they have mainly taken part in long-ranging crusades as they were set up as a crusading chapter, much like their cousins, the Black Templars. However, they were formed of some of the younger and more level-headed Imperial Fists, with the more zealous becoming Black Templars, and others of a less even temperament going into other chapters. Now their name actually comes from a ritual apparently performed by Rorgal Dawn in the Imperial Fists, where he and a new chapter master would cut open their hands and then shake hands, thus sealing the blood between the Primarch and the new chapter master. The Crimson Fists have literally taken this as their icon, with the gloves of their armour being painted crimson along with a few other pieces of trim. The Crimson Fists spent the first 9 millennia as a spacefaring chapter, and they were based aboard the battle barge Rotillus Tyrannus. However, in Millennium 40, after successfully participating in the Voltigern Crusade, where several Orc realms were destroyed, the Crimson Fists were granted the fiefdom of Rinnsworld, and they now recruit from feral worlds around that planet. Midway through Millennium 41, their homeworld was later invaded by Orcs. Now this shouldn't have been too much of an issue as their entire chapter was on the world at the time. However, their original battle barge suffered a severe malfunction, with a missile getting through its defences and destroying the entire battle barge, resulting in the deaths of over 600 Space Marines. Now that massive deprivation in manpower, because each Space Marine is worth far more than a single soldier, meant that the Orcs were easily able to take over the space around Rinnsworld and began a siege of the planet. The remaining Crimson Fists on the planet then consolidated on some of the planet's more defensible locations and held out for over 18 months, nearly being destroyed before a strike force of over 2,000 Space Marines from 6 chapters appeared to smash the Orcs aside and liberate the planet. The Crimson Fists were actually nearly disbanded because of their losses, being less than 300 Marines strong when they were recovered. However, they've now gained much more of their strength after half a millennium, and have recruited nearly 500 Marines. Now this isn't of course at full strength, but it is enough to keep them effective in their operational theatres, and has led to them being able to maintain the honour of their name. However, they now have an abiding hatred of all Orc life, and have sworn vengeance against every Orc in the galaxy, hoping to crush them for the damage they were dealt. Now the organisation of the Crimson Fists wholly follows the Codex Astartes, and as such there's very little to talk about there. They don't have any unique soldiers or unique ranks. However, they do have a little variation in one of their companies, namely the first company, which they call the Crusade Company, a tradition which was started after the Crusade of Righteous Liberation left the Crimson Fists with no more than 128 survivors, which is even less than a devastation at Rinnsworld, but obviously they recovered after that. This has led to the first company being kept at 128 Marines ever since, as a remembrance of that time when they were reduced, and showing that after that battle, all 128 Marines of the Crimson Fists were veterans. It's also interesting to note they have quite close ties to the Inquisition, and have personally assisted in destroying 2 renegade chapters that broke away from the Imperium and pursued their own ends, which is a cause for them to have a lot of trust within the Imperium. However, many chapters who dislike the Inquisition do feel that the Crimson Fists are lapdogs of the Inquisition. However, there's no specific chapter that claims this to their face. Now that's everything I wanted to mention about the Crimson Fists. As I've said before, it's quite short, unfortunately. They don't have as much lore as you'd prefer, but they are very much a Codex Astartes chapter and so have very little in the way of variation. However, of course, because they are a second founding chapter, they are definitely worth a mention, and so I've given all the information I can here. I will go into more detail about the Battle of Rindsworld in a later video. However, at this time, I've said all I need to say about the Crimson Fists relating to the chapter itself. Now, we are still looking for votes as to what chapter we should have next, as we've gone beyond the most famous chapters now, and we're walking beyond into the more unknown chapters which specific people have requested. So, if you do have a chapter you want to see, do vote in the comments section below, or go to the Vox Relay, the Vaults of Terra's forum, which will be linked in the description below, and there you can also vote for the chapter you'd like to see next. Next time we will be going back to the Imperial Guard, specifically looking at their armoury of vehicles and heavy weapons, which should be quite interesting. So if you do have any Imperial Guard regiments you want me to have a look at after I've dealt with the main organisation of the Imperial Guard, then do let me know in the comments below, or the Vox Relay as I mentioned before, and hopefully if you have any further questions, do go to both of those sources and we'll be able to answer the more specific questions about the Warhammer 40,000 universe or the videos themselves, if you have got any questions or comments relating to that. So that's everything I wanted to mention today. See you next time on the Vaults of Terra.